In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a simple AI-powered Q&A agent that can read over hundreds of documents of various file types, PDFs, Word docs, Excel files, etc., and can provide you instant answers. And we're going to build this in just a couple minutes with no lines of code. We'll use AI, a vector database, and automation in order to make this happen. This chatbot is for a Los Angeles commercial real estate broker. And so I have uploaded these 3 sample files of actually real data. This is actually live market data that I grabbed. And so this is all really good info that we want our chatbot to use. We're going to first start by creating a trigger for this workflow. In this case, we're just going to leave the trigger to be manual. So as soon as we click test work, this workflow will run. And then the next step is to search our specific Google Drive folder. If this is your first time connecting Google Drive to N8N, you're going to have to create new credentials. And so in order to do that, you're going to have to go here and you're going to take the OAuth steps. And so there's a ton of docs on that. And if you have questions, just leave them in the comments. What I would recommend, you allocate a specific folder to just include the data that you want to upload. This makes this really easy for this to run. And so then you can just turn on return all. And then there's a few ways you can do this. I prefer to just do this with URL. And so I go to the URL of the folder with that folder open, and you can paste that URL there. And then you can click test step when you're ready to test, just to make sure it has connection. And it just finished executing, and we can see that it grabbed these 3 files, which exactly match what we have in our folder. And so it has access, it has searched folder, and it has found all the relevant files. And so we are good to move on to the next step, which is to download those files. And so we want to download those files. And then after that, we're going to upload it into our vector database. So the next Google Drive module will be one to download file. And then you go ahead and click download. And then this is really important. You want to make sure, so this UI is really nice in the fact that it shows input from the previous module. So what you want to do is you want to press by ID, and then you can just see this input right here from the previous module. You can just drag this over. And so what you're saying is you're downloading all the files that correspond to these file IDs. And so this is a variable, right? So it's going to take in all 3 of those files and download them. And so then you can run test step. We're just going to give it a second. And there you go. That was pretty quick. So then it downloaded all of those files, executed successfully. So now the next step is to actually upload them into our database. So for that, we're going to go here into Pinecone. You're going to want to create an account. It is free to create an account. And then you can just hit create index. So I already have a couple indexes here, but you could just say Chatbot demo or whatever you want to call it. And then you can select the specific embedding model. What I typically do is I just go with text3 embedding small, and you want to just keep note of this dimension. You don't have to do anything else. You can just select this embedding, click create index, and then it will initialize that index for you. Once you do that, and you have your index set up, you also want to make sure that you create an API key. And so you want to create the API key here, where you just hit create API key. You can call it whatever you want. Hit create, and then you can come back here into N8N. We can go to Pinecone, and then we can click add documents to vector store. And then here is where, if you have not connected your Pinecone account before, you're going to want to create new credential, and then you can just paste your API key and hit save, and then that will connect to your Pinecone account. Nothing else to do there. It's simpler than the Google Drive one. It's just an API key. And so then we are going to select our specific index that we just created from Pinecone. And so we had just created this chatbot demo index, which is running live, as you can see. And so you just want to select that index there. And so before we finish setting this Pinecone up, we're going to want to add a loop module. And the reason being, we are uploading all documents, multiple documents, could be hundreds if you'd like. In this case, it's just 3. We're going to upload all of them one by one into our Pinecone database. And so we want to loop over the before we actually upload them. And so we have a module to loop, and then want to move our Pinecone into the loop module. And so where it says replace me, we're actually going to move that into our Pinecone database. And then as soon as it finishes the Pinecone, we are going to come back and loop and go back through this. So now that we have this loop set up, we are going to create an embedding module that our Pinecone database is going to use. And so we're just going to use OpenAI in this case. You want to make sure to connect your OpenAI API account with N8N as well. Again, that is just very simple. Create API key on OpenAI's platform, and then come over here, paste the API key, and then you're all set. We want to make sure to include the same text embedding model. And so if you remember, when we selected and created this Pinecone index, we selected text embedding 3-small. We're going to want to select that exact same one and click done, because we are good with that. And then we want to then go into our document loaders, and we're going to use the default data loader. And so a default data loader needs a specific text splitter. So the text splitter that is used most often for text-based data is the recursive character text splitter, and so I recommend using that one as well. We can leave the chunk size and the chunk overlap the way that it is currently. Just so you're aware, the chunk size is the amount of tokens that is in every single chunk. And so when this database takes in this data, it breaks it into chunks. So every 1,000 tokens is one particular chunk, and it takes each one of those chunks and embeds them, creates some sort of a vector, some sort of a numerical representation of those words in order to better understand it. And then when we chat with our chatbot later, every query that we pass in, every question that we ask our chatbot, that query is also embedded, and then it is looking to find the chunks that are most similar to that query to find the most relevant pieces of information. As you can imagine, this chatbot can't just look at every single piece of data every time you ask it a question. It's going to find what's most relevant, similar to a search engine, but this is quite different in terms of how it searches. So that's relevant on the back end, not really relevant for us. We can leave the chunk size at 1,000 the way that it is. And then with that, we are all set to go. And so we are just going to hit test workflow and see what happens. And so as you can see, it is downloading our files. It is looping over the files. It is splitting the data, uploading the data to our database, embedding the data. Perfect. It is all set. We're just going to hit save. And then we are done with this workflow. I'm just going to rename this, and then we are good to go. And then we are going to create another workflow. And then just to confirm that this works, we can go over here. So as we can see, when we come back to this specific index, we can see that this database is now filled with data. And so we are good on that front. Now let's go create the next workflow that is going to allow us to have an actual chatbot. I'm just going to name this chatbot demo. And then we're going to have the trigger for this workflow be on a chat message. So as soon as a message is received, we are just going to hit test chat. And then we're going to say hi to test this works well. Perfect. There should be no issues there. And then as soon as we get that, we are going to pass that query over to our AI agent. And so our AI agent is this tools agent. It takes the prompt as chat input, and then our AI agent is connected to a few things. It's connected to a chat model, a large language model that we're going to connect it to, a memory, so it stores context of the whole chat and at least a couple chats before it. And then we have the tool, which is going to connect to our Pinecone database. And so first we can just use OpenAI. I'm using 4.0. You can use other models, some of the newer models as well. I'm just going to keep it to 4.0. The newer models are a little bit expensive because they are new. And so that's our chat model. We're going to add memory. We're just going to click window buffer memory. And this is our context window. So when you're having a chat with the AI, this sets the number of messages before your current message that the AI gets in context. And so 5 is actually quite a lot. We can leave it at 5. So it has memory of the most recent conversation. And then we can move this over here, and then we can add our tool, which is then going to be our data. And so we're going to answer questions with a vector store. And all we're going to say here, I'm just going to keep this super simple. We're going to call it data, and then we're going to say get data from our Pinecone database, and then we will limit it to 4 chunks. And so our vector store is going to be our Pinecone vector store. And so we are collecting it from the chatbot demo. And then our goal is to retrieve documents as vector store for chain tool. We're going to select that one, and then that is all good to go. We're going to add an embedding. So it's going to take our query and embed that into ones and zeros, or just a string of numbers, compare them with the other chunks that we've passed in. And so we're going to leave this embedding as embedding 3-small. You want to make sure to choose the same embedding model every time, because every embedding model is a little bit different in terms of its dimensions. So this dimension is 1536. We want to leave it at that so that there's no compatibility issues there. So this is our vector store and our embedding, and then we have our model that is actually going to take the most similar chunks. It's going to take all of the context and then create the answer and then pass that answer back. And so we can just use 4.0 mini for this as well. And now we are pretty much set. The last thing on this particular workflow that I forgot to mention is when you are uploading the documents to the database and you have your data loader, you need to make sure that you change it. It's originally at JSON, and you want to change it to binary. The reason being is that our Pinecone database stores all of the embeddings in binary. So we need to make sure the data loader and everything is in binary. So we just need to change that from JSON to binary, and then you need to run this one more time just to make sure that all of the data gets uploaded to your database in binary, and then you are all good to go as soon as this runs. Now that we've built out this entire chat, the last thing we're going to want to do is to add our system prompt into our AI agent tool. And so I've added it here already, and it says you are a research assistant to an LA commercial real estate brokerage. Your job is to answer questions about the market and provide helpful suggestions to real estate agents at your brokerage. All of this information can be found in the Vector Store tool. Call that tool each time you are asked a question to ensure you're providing the staff with accurate information. So that is our system prompt to give our AI agent context, because our AI agent is basically the master of all of this chat. It determines which path it goes down and how it basically functions. And so we want to make sure to give it as much context as we can. So you can even add more information if you'd like. This is a pretty simple system prompt, and you would set your max iterations to whatever you'd like. I just set it to 10 for the purposes of this demo. And then we are just going to chat with our AI agent to see and confirm that it is working properly. We could just start by just saying hi. There you go. So it looks good. As you can see, it didn't go down this path with the tool for Vector Store to go into our database. It determined that it can just respond hi without needing to do that. And then we ask another question like, vacancy rates in LA. Yeah, and we could just ask that question. And now you see that it goes into our database. It's going to find the piece of data that is most relevant to this question, and then it is going to return back the answer that it generates. So as we see, we said as of March 2025, the vacancy rates in LA are as follows. And so it has office sector, and then it pretty much just ends it there, which if you look at these exact numbers, they do match up just the way that it says. And so we could add a little bit more context or space to the AI agent to respond a little bit longer, but I think you get the idea that this is pulling data directly from the documents that we have in our Google folder, which is now into our database. And then we have a live chatbot. And so you can upload hundreds of files into your Google folder. You can even have this work every week synchronously to sync up all of your latest documents into your database, and then you can port this chatbot, put it anywhere else that you'd like on your website, responding to DMs, answering common Q&As. You can do a lot of things with this chatbot. This can also be used as an internal tool for employees that come into your business that need to learn about your business. Typically in a company, you're asked to memorize all the SOPs or to read all these in your spare time. This is basically doing all of that for you. It gives the person the ability to chat with someone live to get all the answers that they need about the company. So there's so many use cases for this, but this is exactly how you build it in just a couple minutes. And like I mentioned, these two workflows are going to be located in the resource hub, which you can get access to. If you click the link at the bottom of this video, it just says start.digitalpeakstrategy. You can go over to the resource hub, download this resource along with the other workflows for the other AI agents that I build out on this channel, and then you'll be good to go in just a couple minutes. You can skip all of these steps and just get straight to like connecting all of your different tools and run in just a couple minutes. So that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next